One of the biggest lessons that I've learned since opening this beautiful business, Workout Anytime in Lanham, is that God knows where your hidden treasures are, and He will place you where you need to be to find them. And I say that because prior to opening this beautiful gym, I was going through it. I was going through a very, very tough time. I was discouraged. I was scared. And this was because I could not find anyone to help me get my hands on my certificate of occupancy. And a certificate of occupancy, which is also known as a CO, is a document that allows you to open your gym space or your business to the public. So I was at the finish line. The gym was immaculate. The equipment was in. I had 1,800 people signed up, ready to go and excited to get inside of my gym doors. But I could not open my doors to the public. So for whatever reason, I was met with stark silence. The building department had no answers. My phone calls weren't getting returned. The emails weren't getting returned. I had no answers as to why I was lost in the system and could not get my hands on this CO. 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks, 4 weeks turned into 6, 6 turned into 8, 8 turned into sheer panic, because despite not having that document, the bills are still coming, your rent is still due, the gas and electric is still coming in. This one particular morning, the pressure was overwhelming. My spirit just felt broken. I was crying the night before, I was crying that morning, I didn't get any sleep, but I do remember just getting on my knees and praying and asking God, or telling God, I don't know what's happening, but I still trust you. I trust you. I trust you. I just kept repeating it. And I was going through it. I was feeling defeated at this point. But that's why it's so important to still speak life, even when you feel like you're being under attack. Despite how I was feeling, I was still trying to convince myself that I knew God would not have brought me this far to just leave me. You still have to speak life, whether you believe it or not. You're gonna convince someone, because we do serve a God who listens. And He listened that morning. So I got myself together this morning, I went to the gym, and when I pulled up in front of the gym, there were these 2 large Amazon boxes. They were my chairs that came. I walked in, I looked at them, they were the wrong color. I immediately packed them up. I went to USPS to drop them off, and they rejected me because the dimensions were too big. I then drug them back into my car, drove to the post office, walked in, dropped them off. They said, no, I'm sorry, we can't take them. The dimensions are too big. Took them back into my car. At this point, I remembered a small independently owned shipping center called Pack and Business Solutions in Bowie, Maryland. And the owner I had met once before because I had sent off an envelope. I drove there, and she told me that she would take them. Gave them to her. I'm rushing back out the door. I have my hand on the door, and as I'm exiting, her name was Rosalind. She calls out from behind the desk, and she says, wait, Brave, so how's the gym going? And I had a choice to make in that moment. I could have simply smiled and lied and said, oh, everything's going great, and then just went back to my car to cry, or be honest and vulnerable and say exactly what I did say, which was, I don't know. And when she asked me, she said, what do you mean you don't know what's happening? And I told her that for whatever reason, I could not get my CNO. She looked at me and said, wow, I went through the same thing. It took me 1.5 years to get mine. Sheer panic just came right back to me all over again. And she ended up interrupting it by saying, but there was a woman who helped me. Okay, who is this woman? Immediately, Rosalind calls and emails this woman in front of me, a woman I've never heard of. You have to keep in mind, I had Googled, I had been to the department every single day up until this point. It took me 10 weeks, and I was getting no answers. She calls this woman immediately. 15 minutes later, this woman emails me back, she calls me back. This was the first woman who took the time to go down the rabbit hole and investigate why I couldn't get my CNO. After that first call with her, 2 weeks, I had my CNO in hand. God knows where your hidden treasures are. There was nothing coincidental about that day, why I was rejected by USPS, why I was rejected by the post office. I was meant to be at that facility, at that business, at that time, to meet Rosalind, to find my hidden treasure. And I just want that to be a word of encouragement for anyone who might be delayed on something you're hoping for. God knows the desires of your heart. You just have to be brave enough to stay the course.